Welcome to Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders. I'm Kat, joined by Ernesto. How's it going?
Oh, the eve of the rest of our lives. Tomorrow is D-Day. Other people call it V-Day. I call it Jesus fucking Christ. Can we end this nightmare?
Oh, and rock! Yes, DJ Play Nights, indeed.
Yeah. All fine on the iceberg in the Caribbean. And yes, the orca is now mocking me. So I got to deal with that shit. Not enough chum on this thing to get it away. But then again, I am the penguin. I kind of got myself into this mess. I will get myself out of it as soon as I find my propeller umbrella.
Yes, indeed. Now that we have our top hat this week.
We do.
Thanks, DJ. Yes, and El Pinguino. Yes.
Yes. And if you don't mind, as we've been doing lately, we do a little bit of a roundup now just to kind of like wet the appetite, wet the whistle, get everything out of the way. We'd have to do some house cleaning here. So I'll just bump through a few of them and then we will kind of decide which one stands out. Sure. So it comes as no surprise that we are going to be getting a sequel from the writer-director of Godzilla -1 at some point either next year or 2 years from now. Mm-hmm. We are possibly expecting Garrett Dillahunt to be starring in the Green Lantern TV show. Garrett Dillahunt, for those people who don't know, if you've ever seen Terminator: The Sarah Chronicles, he played the main Terminator character in that series. He's been in some other shows here and there, but the one show that I discovered him on was on Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Short-lived, actually did something interesting with the lore, but the ratings weren't there and we never got to see the finale. But as the Terminator franchise has taught us, sometimes it's always good to stop at 2. Apparently, you were saying?
I thought that was funny as all.
Yeah. Apparently, Vera Farmiga has a metal band and her debut song is now out. The Crying Room is their first single. I haven't heard it, but I will after this discussion. James Gunn apparently was brought to arms, I guess. He is addressing DC Studios and compensating DC comic creators. Apparently there was an issue of properly compensating and recognizing DC Comics creators for films, shows, and more. Do I know the full story? Not at this time, but I'm just letting you know that it is apparently in the discussion, as Catherine and I both are very familiar with. When it comes to Marvel and DC Comics, they have had a long history of, I guess you could call it, tiny drama / controversy when it comes to fully compensating their creators, and they always manage to have the powder keg blow up in their face, whether they do it with the best of intentions, and we all know what happens when things are done with the best of intentions.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the best of intentions. I've heard nothing but bad things about writers' lack of compensation from those companies. So.
And the last 3 articles that we have before we pretty much get out of it is apparently there was if you go to bleedingcool.com, you can find an article about how the conversation went for Avengers Doomsday, evolving from the initial Kang Dynasty to now the infamous Doomsday, bringing in Robert Downey Jr. as the multiversal version of Victor Von Doom. Game of Thrones is getting a movie made by Warner Brothers. It's currently in development. And apparently there is a sequel to Roger Rabbit, but we will never see it. Why bother telling us if we're never going to see it?
What was the story behind the Dr. Doom thing? You said there was a story about that?
Oh, yeah. There is an article on bleedingcool.com where basically it's kind of like a summary of how the script from Kang Dynasty to Doom evolved. I haven't read it. I'm just saying that for anybody who is curious to see what the point-by-point basis of it is at bleedingcool.com. Out of everything I just bamboozled you in here, what stands out to you the most?
Repeat the third one again.
The third one or the last one?
The last one.
That there is a sequel for that we will never see.
I read that, and it's interesting because Robert Zemeckis says it's because the current Disney climate would never approve something that racy like Jessica Rabbit and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, they might. Because Jessica Rabbit wasn't that, risky. I mean, it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't, actually. It's fine. A lot of Disney movies have that where the guy's like, the prince is ogling the princess at some point. What's a big deal? They could totally do that today if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people forget that a lot of things go over certain people's head, especially a younger crowd. I remember watching Roger Rabbit. A lot of the jokes in that movie, I didn't get at a single one of them. They all went over my head. It wasn't until I rewatched it a few years later when I was older that I started to kind of like get the innuendo, understand the double entendre, etc. And because we are visual creatures, the one thing that, at least from a boy's perspective, is that yes, she's not bad, but she is drawn that way.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. But you think about it, they don't really push the idea that far in that movie. And
No,
I
they
wonder
don't.
if people are conflating it with the memory of the book, which was a lot darker and more crude, because they very much Disneyfied. Or I mean, it was it's Disney Warner Brother, but they very much Disneyfied the original Roger Rabbit story, which was who censored Roger Rabbit. Uh, I think the movie's better. Um, but I don't know. Maybe he should try walking in and giving it. I mean, unless Robert Zemeckis walked into the Disney Studios and tried to pitch it, and they said no. Because
Yeah,
my understanding is that this script was written years ago, so maybe the new regime would be more open to it. Who knows?
yeah, and we've seen how live action animation hybrids are these days. I think the last one that you and I can say we've both seen came like 1 year apart from each other. One
Yeah,
was the Tom and Jerry live action hybrid movie,
yeah.
which just not talking about the quality of it, because I can tell you right now it really wasn't that great, but I did like the look of it. They were able
Mm.
to blend the cartoons with the live action environment very well. It was pretty seamless. I mean, yeah, they're a cartoon, but they actually are living and breathing in the real world. I mean, we had the Space Jam sequel, again, not a good movie, but everybody blends in very well. And lastly, we had that one that Disney did with the Chip and Dales.
Yeah.
They kind of were famous for getting the ugly Sonic in there as a cameo. So you can still do it. And again, nostalgia has been a very lucrative endeavor in the last few years. I'm pretty sure if you were to release that movie, you're going to get a pretty good boon from the audience. Again, you need to trust the audience. You can't just automatically assume it's going to be, oh my God, think of the children. How about you think of the adults for once? We want shit.
Yeah, we're the ones who pay for all of it.
Yeah, the kids do not go to the movies by themselves. They do not have an allowance unless we allow them to live.
Speaking of allowing children to live,
Oh yes, talk about a segment, aren't we? Bazinga.
uh, yes. So the Penguin. Here we are with the 7th episode.
Can
We
I just
begin.
say, can I
Yeah,
just say that I had a lot of memory callbacks to different projects watching the first 15 minutes of this episode. One
yeah,
of them being We Need to Talk About Kevin. The other one was the Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood movie. You remember that one?
yeah. The Good Son.
The Good Son. Yeah, those two movies were ringing in my head the entirety of the first act of this episode because holy shit.
So I, I'll bring it up when we get to it, but it's like, okay, so this episode begins with a flashback. Oz is like what, maybe 12. His brother Benny's 10. His older brother Jackie's 15. And Oz is, sitting there next to his mom and trying to talk, and then Jack and Benny run in, and they're uh, being all noisy and knocking stuff over. And the mom's like, "You're in trouble now," and she pretends to be a zombie to go play with them. And Oz is kind of sitting there, almost detached from the situation. He's kind of watching, kind of impassive, just whatever. And his mom tells him to go outside and play. You need to get outside. And Oz says, "I want to stay here with you." And she's like, "No, you need your exercise." So she kicks them all out. The kids are walking through town, and they see this guy get thrown out of his shop, and Rex Scalisi, the mobster who Penguin spoke very highly of in the cold open of the series, is hustling this guy, and Jackie sees what happened, and he puts his brothers, he's like, stay back. And Rex pays Jackie $50. He's like, "Oh, you're Francis's kid, aren't you?" And he gives him the 50. And I gotta say, looking at Rex, he wasn't the way I imagined him. Like, the way Penguin talked about him, he seemed more like a Vito Corleone type of guy. Like, not somebody who went around being a bully in broad daylight, but somebody who took care of people in the neighborhood the way everybody loved him. And yet here he is, oh yeah, probably it looks like he's out racketeering or something, throwing this guy in the street for not paying him his dues from his shop. I was like, okay. I recognized the actor playing him, but I did not, I don't know his name. Let's see if it's actually listed here.
If anybody has seen the show Billions on Showtime, he is one of the underlings from Axelrod on that show.
Mm,
I also don't know his name off the top of my head, but I do recognize his face. I'll say this. I wasn't expecting him to be Rex, like
yeah.
the portrayal of Rex in this Gotham Batman Matt Reeves universe, but he does kind of qualify in the seedy, kind of look. I'm like, yeah. Just by looking at him, I know he's guilty of something. But
This,
that hair does not do him any
yeah.
Like, this is supposed to take place, what, in the 80s, more or less?
This is spring 1988.
Yeah, so I'm like, woof, I don't know what style you were going for, man, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people don't have the cojones to criticize your hairstyle.
He's a total manipulator. Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Question: is Rex Khaleesi from the comics
Rex Calabrese?
or Calabrese?
Oh yeah, he's recently, at least during the New 52 before the Rebirth initiative, he is Selena Kyle's father, biological father,
Oh, that's
and
right.
and that's what kind of prompted Selena to take over the family business. And so she stopped being Catwoman for a while, and she basically became one of the queen pins of Gotham. And she would always run into Batman, and Batman's like, you know, you don't have to do this. I'm just like, I don't need you to tell me what to do. If you go to war with the rest of the families, you know I'm going to be there to stop you. I intend to see you there. So she's not stopping one way or the other. And it's interesting because that was during the time where we didn't know if Batman and Catwoman were going to get back together again because the New 52 had happened. And so a lot of relationships and reveals were pretty much just taken out of continuity until Rebirth happened and the continuity came back. And then that's when we had the Batman Catwoman wedding, all that stuff that was happening. But that was a pivotal moment in at least modern comics where, you know, sometimes you wonder, you need to give these characters something to do. And oh boy, to give Catwoman a family, a crime family, now that's what I call doing something for a character. But if you look up Rex in the comics and if you look at artist interpretations, he doesn't look any different than what Clancy Brown's portrayal of Maroni is here. He's like your typical handsome looking mafioso.
He kind of looked in this episode almost like he and Mark
He looks
Strong.
like Guido.
No, he looked like him and Mark Strong as young Falcone would be brothers.
Yeah, they look like they could be related. Exactly. They both have major hairstyle issues.
And the glasses work for Falcone as an older man. They didn't work. I don't think they worked very well when he was younger.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the younger brother's like, "What did he give you? How much he give you?" He's like, $50. I'm like, "Oh, cool. We can go play Double Dragons at the arcade forever." And he's like, "No, we're giving." And Jackie's like, "No, we're giving it to Mom." And then you hear some thunder. And they're like, "Oh, we got to get indoors." And Jack suggests that they go inside and play flashlight tag. So they go into the old trolley station, the same one that Penguin has set up his mushroom shop in the present timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And they decide that Oz is going to be the first one to count. And of course, he only counts to 3 before he's like 1, 2, 3, 10. And you and I have said throughout the show, going back to the beginning, that we knew at some point Penguin, like all of this violence of gangsters versus gangsters, was going to have to spill out into the innocent at some point for us to really care about the notion of Penguin being a villain, or like, because gangsters killing gangsters, whatever. Like the Joker says, "I tell a gangbanger get shot," whatever. I did not think that innocent death or something was going to be from his past. I thought it was going to be from the present timeline or in his future.
We both thought it was going to be Victor.
Yeah, or in something in the present timeline. So I was shocked. And you know how much I love Batman Returns. I know you hate it. I never thought
hate is a strong word.
I never thought in a million years that we would see this guy's evil plan come to fruition in any way in the comics. I joked when we reviewed Dark Knight Rises almost over a year and a half ago now, that hey, Bane's taking up shop in the sewers and he's killing the orphans that don't serve him and drowning them in the sewer. And I was like, oh my God, this scene, and this again, the perfection of how this scene is edited and directed. For the rest of this scene. So what happens is his brothers decide to hide inside they open the door going into the sewer and they hide down below. And at first it was like Pennywise vibes. And they're like, "Oh, come on down. It's going to be fun." And it's like, is there going to be like a little sailboat or a paper boat floating around down there? but Oz can't do it because he's got the big leg brace on, and Oz thinks they did it deliberately because they know he can't climb down there, but they didn't. They were just kids having fun. And his older brother's kind of like apologizing. He's like, "Oh, don't worry, Oz, I'm coming," or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, let's see how you like it." So he slams the door shut. And two thoughts went through my head immediately. One, I said they're going to die. Secondly, I thought maybe at first when he shut the thing, he was thinking about leaving him in there for an hour or overnight or something. I didn't think at the time that he meant to actually murder them. But he goes home. He tells his mom that, "Oh, they went to the movies, Ma. I didn't want to go." She's like, "Okay." And then later, and it cuts back to just the outside of the sewer door as you hear the kids calling for Oz and banging on the door trying to get out.
And we cut back to that 3 different times.
Yes, and the next time we cut back to the apartment, Oz's mom, Frances, she's looking through the papers to find the movie showtime. She's like, "What movie did they go to see? I don't know if I have to go pick them up later." And he's like, "Oh, they went to see Beetlejuice." I thought,
marketing.
Yep, marketing, and of course Michael Keaton, Batman, Beetlejuice. Okay, so that fits.
Do you think that was an ad lib or done in post?
What?
The Beetlejuice. You think that was already in the script, or do you think while they were
I think that was definitely in the script because they're clearly riffing on Batman Returns, and because of Penguin's age, because it's supposed to be
that can also be a possibility. It's just that because the movie had come out before the show, I wonder if in the editing process they'd be like, "Hey, I need him to say the movie Beetlejuice just for marketing."
Oh, you're thinking of the sequel. I meant I think they would have said it anyway because they're drawing on Batman Returns and hey, Michael Keaton, and said let's just advertise the Michael Keaton movie and Beetlejuice because the timeline.
That's fair. Go ahead.
Which would put this around March or April of 1988, and so
probably
he's like, "Oh, they just went to see this Beetlejuice," so they sit down and watch the Fred Astaire film Top Hat, and there's a point in the film where Fred Astaire's doing this great dance number and he picks up his cane and uses it like a mock machine gun to knock down the guys in the back, and Oz is kind of smiling. And he kind of looks outside the window and he notices that the rains are picking up. And then we cut to this beautiful shot of the rains, just water seeping through the storm drain. And then we cut to the doors to see the water flowing outside and rising up a bit. The kids are screaming, wanting to get out. And then it cuts back to inside back at Oz's place. And he's sitting there with his mom. They're just enjoying the movie, cuddling up. He's clearly enjoying the extra attention he's getting because he didn't seem to be getting that beforehand. Yeah. And then it just cuts back again to the sewer door. And this time water is seeping out of the entire door as they're just screaming and they're drowning. And it is so horrifying watching this as and then it completely flips the relationship on its head. Because we thought the thing was that, he's a mama's boy because his mom's kind of nutty. Is upset because, like he said in the previous episode, I was too weak. My brother is the city. At first, I thought his brothers may have gotten successful and just moved out of Gotham. But then in the last week's episode, when he said that, I was too weak and the city got them, I thought, okay, so his mom probably. I still thought it was like an adulthood thing. And I was thinking that him being a mama's boy and the mom was just always alcoholic, but it's not because in the flashback, she's kind of more or less normal. Single mom raising these kids, but it's him murdering his brothers that has driven her to depression and alcoholism, which of course exacerbates dementia. And you could tell in the previous episode that Oz genuinely felt bad about his brother. He felt guilty and remorseful about whatever happened. He said, "I was too weak," which is why he didn't want Victor, now in hindsight, why he didn't want Victor telling his mom that, Jack's still alive. He just went to the store. It's not that he has an ego.
It would be too cruel. Especially after watching this first 15 minutes, that would have been the most cruelest thing you could do.
Right, and it's not that it's an ego thing. You can tell he feels genuinely bad about it. If there had been an ability to open a time machine, he would go back there and push his younger self out of the way and open that door. But he can't. But the way he just sits there on the couch, because again, I thought he was just going to leave him there overnight, and when he saw the rain, maybe they would rush there, be too late. But the way he just sits there like a psychopath and thinking, I got mom to myself type of thing. And I get it. He's got disabilities. He can't keep up with his brothers. He's not getting as much attention. He's a bit more needy, but it's
but this is
that level. To take it to that level, it's because at first, who knows? Maybe at first he was just going to leave him there overnight. And once he saw the rains coming, it's okay,
Well, I'm of two minds here because, first of all, this episode, at least this section that we've just discussed, the pacing, the editing, the ability to not show but still allow your mind to fill in the blanks of Like, you never see the kids after he closes the
Mhm.
well shut on them. You only hear them. You only hear the sounds of the metal banging, the rain in the background. You can see the water pouring out of the steel door. You're in your mind. You already saw these kids. You know what they look like. You know how deep they were. You know that there's no footing here, and where they were was a tunnel. And there is no going in the tunnel, especially when the water's going down. Gravity is a thing in this universe. And you hear them just banging it, and I can just imagine them holding on to dear life on that metal ladder railing. They're like, "Oh, this isn't funny." And then the next scene, "Help! Someone help!" And then the next scene, the water is no longer pouring from the bottom. The water is pouring from all sides of the steel door, and you don't hear those kids again. And when we kept cutting back and forth, in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I referenced we need to talk about Kevin, and I referenced the good son. At this point, I'm thinking, what are we getting here? Are we getting a kid who purposely did it because he wants mom all to himself, and he's not thinking of the consequences, the repercussions? Or is this a situation where he thinks, they'll get out. It's fine. I just want to be with mom for a moment, because he kept looking back. And I don't know if
Mhm.
he was looking back because he was hoping that his brothers would get out by themselves. Because a third option, the normal option, would be that at some point he would freak out, and then he'd be like, "Okay, mom, I did something. I'm sorry, but my brothers, I locked them down. I can't." But you know what I mean? Like, he would start
Yeah.
spilling the beans, and then they would start rushing over there. And the moment they finally opened the steel door, the brothers would come out, and then you hear mom screaming, and then you cut to black. That would have been the third option,
Yeah.
and that would have probably left her comatose or something, or that's how the whole downfall of her mom's health would begin. But yeah, as that was happening, I'm thinking, holy shit, this is also an Oedipus complex as well.
Mhm.
Like, but the thing is that it is not that different from at least the Prime Earth current continuity of the Penguin's origin. He, in the comics, he was very obsessed with his mother. Like, he wanted her attention. His mother was always doubting on him. She was always, pretty much coddling him. He was a mama's boy because when he was born, his father grabbed him, and when he was born and he was looking at him and he took him out of the blanket, he saw the deformity and he dropped him on his head as a baby. And since then, the father resented him for just looking like a freak. So what does Oswald do? He recluses himself at the roof of where they were living, and he made friends with birds. He would constantly make bird-like figurines for his mother because he loved his mother above everything else. Even though his three brothers would tease him to nonstop and sometimes bully him, he always could go back to his mom, and his mom was basically his iceberg lounge. That was peace for him. And then after a while, you know what happens when you bully too much? Something's going to come back to you like a boomerang. So Oswald decided that he had enough. And one night during his childhood, his brothers decided to destroy his figurine collection. Of all the things those brothers could do, they decided to destroy the one thing that mattered to him, the one thing that belonged to him, the one thing that nobody in this world would tarnish, because his mother loved the fact that he was always working on those figurines. So once they were broken, he felt that they went too far, and he murdered them in accidents, quote unquote accidents. One of his brothers, named Jason, died of poisoning. William got a hit and run, and Robert had a freak accident when he died by drowning at the bottom of the frozen harbor of Gotham.
Mm.
So, technically speaking, one of those things happened in this episode, so it's comic book accurate.
Yeah, and so he just sits there as he's watching the Top Hat and, loving his mom as the drowning, and it's like, "Oh my god, this is so fucking insane."
It says,
Uh,
you know what drove it home? The next scene.
yeah, because the next scene, there's, like, an undetermined amount of like, a time jump,
Uh huh.
and he's prepared dinner for his mom, and he's bringing it to the door, so it's like, "Oh, gee, she's still not even coming out of her room," and
Yep.
to Oz's surprise, she opens the door dressed to the nines and wants to go out to dance,
Like, that was
and
like
so he
hubba
takes.
hubba kind of addressed to the nines.
Yeah, and he Oz dresses up, and they go to Monroe's, and it's like, "Oh, shit, this is the
Uh,
jazz story that he told back in, like, the
mhm.
first episode,"
Oh yeah.
uh, which he was making it sound like a happy memory. It's like, no, she's, like, effectively snapped at this point in her grief, and she figures, "What the hell?" So she just takes him to Monroe's, they're dancing to jazz music, of course, the whole Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers thing. And Oz makes a promise to her that she will never want for anything again. He will take care of her for the rest of his life. And I think as he got older, he probably realized that, he's the cause of his mother's downfall. Like, the thing that she loved, which was all three of them, and he took that away. And of course, he's never told her, which is why he feels guilty, not just for what he did to his brothers, but he feels guilty of what he's done to his mother. And that's why he's so obsessed with taking care of her. As we learn in the episode, Sophia not only thought his mother was dead, but that Oz was really broken up about everything. So he went out of his way to make sure she was going to be safe.
And I think when he kept talking about he was weak, I think that still qualifies because he couldn't get down those metal stairs when they were playing hide and seek. Hell, if he would have gone down those stairs, he probably wouldn't have locked them in there. So he probably thinks himself that he was very weak as far as I couldn't even go down a few steps on that freaking ladder.
Well, I think also he's referring to mentally the fact that, he feels bad that he killed his brothers over this.
Oh, no, yeah. But again, I think it all started the moment he realized, you guys are fucking pricks. I can't get down here. But it is still within character because the smallest thing would set him off.
Right.
And this was the first of many. And it goes back to episode 1 where Junior made fun of him and his brothers inadvertently made fun of the fact that, oh yeah, he's not going to be able to come down here. Look at his leg.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Bravo to the people who made this first 15 minutes. That is bravo in storytelling. God damn.
Yeah, that's just so dark. And then when they put the title card up, this time the words are centered. Like the is centered, not tiny off on the side, but you have the DC logo on top, then the prominently displayed and Penguin. It's like, yes. That's
come full circle, people.
Yes. And it's like, oh God.
And we still got one more episode to go.
Oh, we're not even barely at the start of this one. It's like, Jesus.
Exactly, but we still got a long ways, damn it.
So then after that absolutely shocking and horrifying opening, we cut back to the present, and Oz goes to the apartment where Francis and Vic have been held up, and he finds that it's been a bit ransacked. He finds Vic unconscious on the floor and bloody, and he picks him up. He's like, what happened? And Vic apologizes. He's like, we were dancing, and then I got hit. I don't know. And he's apologizing to Oz, but he says, no, I don't need your guilt. It's nothing. I need you to go fetch me an army. And I found that interesting after the way the episode opened, that he's saying, I don't need your guilt. I don't want your guilt. And because I thought Penguin was going to lose it when he found out that Vic, lost Francis. But he's like, no, you go to the triads and you fetch me an army. And Vic just crawls out the window and takes off into episode 8. We don't see him again. Oz then sees that, Salvatore Maroni is coming. DJ Plain Ice says, are there 8 episodes in the season? Yes, there's only 8 episodes. Next week is the season finale. And so Vic takes off, and Penguin, seeing that Salvatore Maroni is coming, gets out his gun and he decides he's going to face it. I'm like, oh God, what's he going to do? And the goons break the door down, but instead he makes the point of holding the gun and dropping it, almost like he doesn't, like, don't bother frisking me, I surrender. So they seize him, and Salvatore comes in and starts beating him with the golf club, and he's like, I got this from your place, Oz, smashing that place to pieces. And Oz is just immediately trying to make deals. It's like, if you hurt my mom, if you touch her, I'm not gonna get, you're totally dead or whatever. And Sal's like, you're not in a position to negotiate. He's like, if you harm one hair on my mother's head, you're not getting shit. I'm not telling you shit.
Can I just say that there was a missed opportunity to make a handicap joke with the golf club?
Yeah, there was. I was anticipating it.
I was like, come on, you have it. It's right there. It's right there. Add insult to injury, please. It's right there.
Yes.
But continue.
So instead, Salvatore just beats him harder with the club, and they drag him off. And they force Oz to take him to his base of operations in the trolley station. And Salvatore and the security starts hearing noises, and this guy rounds the corner and immediately gets shot to death. Some other guys get shot, and then Sal walks in with his crew, and he's like, listen up, everyone. You no longer work for the Penguin. You now work for the Maroni Gigante family. And I can understand that this is going to... And everybody's kind of like wondering what they should be doing. And he's like, look, I understand this probably is going to take a minute to process. Take the moment that you need and then pack up. And I thought that was interesting. He used the words pack up because I'm not sure where he was going to relocate it, because then he just says, okay, back to work, everyone. And, Oz, ever the schemer, decides that the best play here is to just insult Maroney, and and Maroney's getting pissed because it's like, you trying to tell me I shouldn't hurt your mom after what you did, to my family. And he looks at the maps and he's like, man, this sewer connects to the tunnel systems ever. He's just like a little sewer rat, insulting him more. And then Penguin brings up how, when he burned the family alive, that he burned his wife and son alive, that he didn't expect. Yeah, I expected the burning flesh, like I said, but the hair, I didn't think her hair would have burned them. Was that really her hair? And Sal is just fucking losing it, and he smacks it upside the head with a kerosene container, and he's like, give me a light. And as just like Oz anticipated, one of the goons pulls the spark plug out of the wall, which causes a power outage because they have all the sparks, and that's when all hell breaks loose. And there's a big fight, and Oz like tackles Sal, and they end up jumping into an old abandoned trolley cart that's there, and they get in a really fisticuffs kind of fight, throwing haymakers, beating the shit out of each other. And then out of blue, Sal just has a heart attack and dies. And Oz is frustrated, and he's like, I thought you were supposed to be the big man. You were supposed to beat me. You were supposed to show me how it is and beat me up. And Oz is frustrated because, in a sense, he's been cheated. He wanted to kill Sal himself, and he pulls out his gun and just shoots Sal's corpse in frustration. And it's like, Jesus, And I admit I wasn't expecting that to happen.
I mean, that's what you get for eating nothing but marinara sauce.
Oh, hey, lemon pie. Cat Ernesto, yep.
Howdy, lemon pie. I will take you with a dark roast.
So then Oz gets out and he congratulates everybody. Thanks for stopping this. You're great and all that. And then meanwhile, back at the Falcone mansion, Sophia gets a call from the children's home or whatever, where orphanage where she sent her cousin Gia, who she spared from killing the Falcones, and she brought her in the greenhouse. And like, Gia's been talking to the police. She said she saw something, and she decides she's going to go deal with it. And so she goes, or before she goes to deal with it, she talks to Francis first, because she has Francis. And she's tells Francis how, Oz told me you were dead, and how he's broken up about it and everything. And Francis just insults the house, saying it needs color, and Francis isn't intimidated by Sophia. She's like, Oz will come for me. He'll save me. And Sophia's like, you have a lot of faith in him, don't you? She's like, yeah, I do. But then Sophia she's like, no, things are different now. My parents, they were very conservative, so the house is kind of ugly, whatever. And Francis is like, no, honey, you're no different from them. You're playing the same game they are. Nothing's different. Nothing's changed. And Sophia kind of brushes it off like it means nothing. And then she asks Francis about her other sons. She's like, yeah, Oz say you have brothers. Are they really dead, or are they holed up in some Crown Point shithole apartment too? And Francis, who has Lewy body dementia, it kind of triggers an episode where she starts shaking, getting these tremors in her hands, and she gets up and she goes to the window, and it's like she's imagining it's sometime after the boys died, and she didn't know they were dead yet, and she seems to think that Sophia is whoever was in charge of the search to find her sons, and getting angry with her, saying, you were supposed to find it, why didn't you do it, blah, blah. And Sophia's listening to this and kind of taking it in, and Francis is like, it was raining that night, they went to the movies, and blah, blah, blah. And eventually Sophia just comments on like what happened, and Francis loses her temper, whatever, and slaps Sophia across the face, and her goon was going to do something about it, and Sophia stops him, and she finds this kind of information interesting, so she leaves the room for a minute to let Francis kind of calm down. She calls Julian over, and Julian says, yeah, well, we got the call about your niece at the place. They saw something, and I could go deal with it. She says, no, I got something else for you to take care of. So she brings Julian to meet Francis to find out what he can learn from her. And I thought, okay, we're finally going to put this guy to some use.
Yeah. Oops, excuse me, I got a hiccup. Sorry. You already talked about the cousin, right?
I'm about to.
Okay.
But I was just pausing after we saw Francis
like, I expected her to slap her when she started talking about the siblings, because I'm just like, oh, I see what's happening. She's either having an actual episode, or she's doing it just so she can get close enough to smack her across the face, or even daring to bring up her children's name and just in a disrespectful way, I should say. And by the way, you know what's also on character with Oz after he kept declaring victory over Sal? It's not the first time he's declared victory early in the match. It happened in the Batman when he thinks that the Batman got blown up with the truck, and he's like, "Oh, I got you! I got you!" And all of a sudden, no, motherfucker, I got you. So this could be an example of him declaring victory early. Granted, he's declaring victory even though it was robbed from him. He is declaring victory against one half of the coin. So as we'll later discuss in this episode, he did declare victory a little too early.
Yes. So Sophia decides to go deal with Gia at the orphanage place.
And can I just say that the new mayor, she needs to get her act together, because what the fuck? Who said it was a good idea to put this kid here, number one?
Yeah, I mean, I get obviously that Sophia would not be granted guardianship of her because everybody still thinks she's the hangman. But this, again, it's like, yeah, it's a step up from wherever the Riddler had been placed in orphanage, but not much.
Yeah, but again, I know there wasn't a lot in those trail, but there has to be a proper group home for kids in Gotham. I mean, I know that Gotham has its issues. I don't deny that. But when it comes to the kids, especially in the better parts of Gotham, whether it's the suburbs or within the city, there should still be technically your standard group home. They put this little girl already in an asylum, basically.
Yeah, it kind of looks like an asylum. And of course, Sophia has flashbacks of being in Arkham while she's walking around looking at this. And she sees Gia, and Gia is very reserved and closed off and doesn't want to talk to Sophia. Is kind of bothered by her. And Sophia manages to get her to say, you know, what happened and what did you see? And she says she saw the gas mask in her bag. But then Sophia notices that Gia's been cutting herself, and that's where she kind of goes into flashback mode and regards Gia as her younger self, essentially, and starts giving Gia advice, basically as if she's talking to herself, saying that, look, those people, they're horrible people. They deserved it. Your life is going to be genuinely better because of this. You're going to be placed in a nice foster home. You're going to love it. It'll be better than they would have ever been able to get for you. And Gia's kind of hiding the fact that she's nervous about it as Sophia's trying to hug her. And then Sophia just kind of says goodbye and doesn't really she seems like she's being very cold, but she actually believes that she will be much better off away from that family.
True, but she's also scarred the kid now, and she was already harming herself or showing early signs of self-harm. And as a social worker who has come across this kind of behavior, while the kid technically is better off away from the family because she would have probably fallen into the same darkness as Sophia has, Sophia, ironically, inadvertently, is already kicking off a already troublesome future for her. If she doesn't get the help she needs early, like actual help, actual therapy, counseling, even equine therapy could help at this point. If she doesn't start now, that kid is not going to make it to 18.
Right.
Now, the other option I was saying is, okay, even though the show doesn't explain it, the only way this kid is in this type of establishment that looks like a asylum is maybe because of the injuries that she's probably there. But at the same time, I'm also wondering if the flooding in the Batman probably affected some of the typical group homes or orphanages, something. I mean, we didn't exactly see every single thing that got affected by the flood, but I'm starting to now think maybe some areas have been affected more than we realize, and maybe that's why she's there, because they don't know where to put her.
Yeah, so let me see if it says what yeah, so she's just in a regular orphanage. So I guess
maybe this is like a medical wing.
Perhaps it seemed kind of that way, but it does look because you notice
seems a little bit extreme. It seems a little extreme.
Yeah, she was in her own room with her own bed, and there's no, even orphans have their own possessions. She didn't have anything, so it might be a medical wing.
The design.
Right, but like I said, I think you're right. I think it is actually the psych ward of whatever wing this is.
Okay, so maybe it's because of her self-harming behaviors that they kind of touch upon at the end of that encounter. Maybe that's the reason. I just feel like, man, of all the places you could put this kid here, really?
Yeah.
You know what it reminded me of for a little bit? You remember watching that movie back in the day called A Little Princess?
No, remind.
I don't know if our viewers remember this movie. It's kind of like came around the time when Matilda was being released, which is basically a girl whose father went off to the First World War, and she was staying. I don't know if it was an orphanage or like a boarding school per se, for an all-girl boarding school. And then the headmistress or the headmaster, but yeah, I think the headmistress, yeah, but I guess you could call her the headmaster. She pretty much was very rude, and she kind of like wanted to rule these kids like with an iron fist. So she had a disdain for most of those kids, and the lead girl in that movie kind of like got the brunt of it until her father comes in the end and rescues her and everything. I was just taken back to that movie watching this episode when Sophia goes to see her, because it's kind of like the same scenario. Her family is not there. She thinks they're never going to come back, and who is she going to blame?
Mm-hmm.
And where is her little mind going to go during those evenings? Is she going to turn to her stuffed animal to help her? Is she going to turn to books to
Mm.
help her? Like, I know it's a deep cut, that reference, but that's where my brain
Yeah.
immediately went to.
Oh, we do have people chiming in with just this thought. So DJ Play Night says, agree. In 1990, my ex worked at a teen group home, and they certainly not the first in the area. The whole orphanage thing was pretty much non-existent. By the mid 70s, a lot of states closed. State schools, asylums, some were holdouts like Pennsylvania. Uh,
Yeah.
he says, I have no problem extending a healthy amount of the willing suspension of disbelief in this and other examples like the one under discussion. Okay, yeah, so they did definitely source that from reality.
Okay.
But as we see Gotham, like Crown Point and areas like this have just been, well, like the mayor said, the lack of there being a real renewal program is just, and the amount of
Yeah.
crime has just festered Gotham to nothing. And then the flood on top of that, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we get to the Batman 2, we might get a reference of a brand new Wayne Foundation orphanage kind of deal. One that actually gives a shit about the kids of Gotham.
Well, I fully expect that Bruce will have taken over the renewal fund,
Yeah.
that he will have donated a bunch of money to the act to helping clean up the city after the flood or something like that. I think that's probably why he's not responding to any of some of the crazy criminal shit that's been going on in this series, because it's only a week after the flood. He's probably taken some time
And a
to
lot of time has jumped, so
reevaluate.
he's probably still doing some shit somewhere.
Yeah, and to reevaluate after the trauma and the shock of realizing, oh shit, I did create the Riddler. I am responsible for this type of thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get a cameo of this young actress in one of the movies when they kind of reference a new group home setting, because
Yeah,
she would probably be there if not adopted at some point.
yeah. My surprise is simply that that there's been no mention of the renewal fund being no longer in the hands of the mob. You would think
Mhm.
that would be a major source of irritation. But then again, we didn't hear what happened to the drops operation in the Baroni seas. Not that the Magic Baronis aren't a thing anymore. So
Can I just say I want to talk to the bean counters of the renewal? I can't even talk now. I want to talk to the bean counters of the renewal fund. I'm like, how much money is in this fund? God damn.
I know. Well, the criminals kept putting their money in, so I guess it kind
I
of.
know, but is it like an investment fund? Is that what it is?
Well, I guess like after they stole the money for whatever else, for other things they want for their own
Jeez.
salaries and shit and
I
racketeering.
think Bane should have gone and attacked that fund instead of Gotham's Wall Street.
Well, yeah, if he was in this universe, he definitely would.
Yeah.
Um, and so as Sophia is leaving Gia behind, she gets a phone call. She's like, "Oh, Sal, thanks." And Penguin's like, "No, sorry, sweetheart. Sal's dead, and I get it. You hate me, you want to kill me or whatever. But look, I'll give you everything if you just give me Ma, and we'll make the arrangements or whatever." And he hangs up on her. And I loved how that was a flip from earlier in the season when Penguin got the call expecting it was going to be confirmation that Salvatore had been killed. Instead, it was Sal surprising him. Now it's Penguin surprising Sophia. And so I thought that was kind of cool. And she goes back to the house, the mansion, interrupts Julian because he's conducting like a psych session with that weird machine that shoots like the laser lights back and forth. and he's got Francis in a trance, and he's talking to her, and it feels like he's about to have a breakthrough, and Sophia just interrupts him, pulls him out of the room, and you can tell he's a bit agitated because he knew he was about to get something from her. And he's like, well, what is it? And she's like, Oz has killed Sal, and he's offered a deal, like he'll give me everything in exchange for his mother. And he's like, well, that's a trap, clearly. And she's like, well, I know it's a trap, but she's like, I think, Francis was right. I walked out of one institution and walked right into another one. Like, this is my father's life. I'm playing my father's game. It's like, no, I'm my own person. I don't need to do this. And she takes the coat off, her mother's, mink coat, and just throws it on the ground. And she's like, no, I'm Sophia. I'm my own person. I'm gonna do this like the way I want to do this, and really put her foot down as being her own person. So I thought, okay, so I thought that she takes the lesson from Francis, of all people, that you're nothing doing the same shit again,
I mean, she is fucking him. Something has got to break through at some point.
So we go back to
and we go back to the most telegraphed moment of this show, but it's still great to watch.
Yeah, so we go back to Penguin's lair, and he's asking his crew about Vic. He's like, have you heard from Vic? I'm like, no, we haven't heard anything. His phone keeps going to voicemail. And Penguin's like, all right, I needed an army, and you guys showed up. I need you. Yeah, he's really proud of them for saving him from Sal and those guys. But then a car shows up. They're like, boss, this black wagon's coming. And it's like a Mercedes wagon, and it's driving in the tunnel leading in. And
all right, boys, get ready.
Get ready. Here we go. And Penguin's the only one standing there facing it, and he gets a phone call from Sophia, and she's in the car, and we're seeing her talking to him, and basically it's sort of like putting Oz in his place, but also accepting that, Oz, yeah, I'm kind of my own person now. I've decided I don't really want to be my dad or do all this crime. I don't know why. I need to find my own way. I need to find, and Oz is getting more and more scared because he thinks he's basically decided to give up the leverage of the mother and decided to kill her or whatever, and he's petrified. And Oz gets closer to the car, wondering why. Come on, Sophia, why are we playing these games? Get out of the car. And the driver gets out of the car and bolts back down the tunnel. And he's like, hey, how are you? And he gets closer to the car, and he looks in the front seat. There's nothing. He looks in the back seat. There's nothing. He goes there on the back. He's scared. And Sophia's still talking to give him shit. Or before he opens the back seat, he opens the door, and there's this great cut where as he opens the door to let light inside, that Sophia's door opens, and there's light, and we realize that she's not in the same car, of course. She's out in the city, and she steps out in front of she steps out somewhere. We're not sure where at the moment. Penguin, meanwhile, is petrified because he knows that his mother's just dead in the back, mauled corpse, that everything Sophia's been saying, she's not interested in a trade. And so with tears in his eyes and really broken, he opens the back of the door, sees the blanket covered over it, which looks almost like a wig or something off on the side, or a scarf, and he pulls back the blanket and sees that it's a bunch of C4 with only 20 seconds. It's like, oh shit. So he bolts, doesn't tell his guys to run or nothing. And then
at this point, it's every man for himself.
Oh, he could have at least shouted something.
He could have, but it's Oz.
And in a really sick twist of fate, he goes for the same sewer door that he locked his brothers in.
Yep.
He opens it. He goes down the ladder, and he hides down there, right, and the explosion goes off right as he's going down the tunnel. And this explosion is so massive, it literally caves in the street like a massive sinkhole in Crown Point at the intersection of this massive big street intersection.
Like the stadium in Dark Knight Rises, basically.
Yeah, and Penguin, I admit, with that level of destruction, I was surprised that Penguin lived, but not surprised, we know it's the show, he's going to live, but it's like, okay, that was a bit much. But he gets up with
the show has pretty much telegraphed that you're going to go through a lot of hell, but you're going to survive every single one of them.
Yeah, so he gets up, staggering out of the rubble, and the explosion has caved in a section of the street like a ramp, so he can get out of this tunnel. And for a second, I thought they were going to do like the full hokey thing and maybe see the bones left behind from his brothers or something, or their shoes.
I think those kids were found after.
And so he takes off out of there, and it's like, God, it's like almost like the aftermath of 9/11, where you see the dust is just everywhere. People are coughing, covered in soot and asthma. Nobody can figure out what's going on.
You see Ben Affleck running in the background?
Huh?
You see Ben Affleck running in the background?
Yeah. But then we cut back to where Sophia is, and we realize she's outside Monroe's, the jazz club that Francis had taken Oz to as a kid, and it's clearly been out of business a long time, a bit dilapidated. And then they pull Francis out of the back of the car, and they take her inside. And Oz, meanwhile, is approached by that corrupt cop, who the one who Sophia had paid to kidnap the Maronis earlier in the season.
Yeah.
And he says, "Hey, Oz, you lived," and he bashes him unconscious.
When one door closes, another one bashes you in the head. And that's where the episode ends.
Yeah, and like a lot of people, I'm thinking that this jazz club is going to perhaps be the new Iceberg Lounge down the way.
It
I mean,
is.
he loves his mother. Yeah, he loves his mother. He loved the jazz club, the top hat, all that kind of stuff. And frankly, even in the first movie, The Batman, I thought, like, that's the Iceberg Lounge. It looks kind of narrow and dingy and dark. It's like, this doesn't look very welcoming the way, just the floor plan. But
it does match the aesthetic. So
yeah, of that show. But this looks like if he spruces it up, it could be pretty cool. And in a much more hip section of town. And so it's like, oh God, this is just, here we go.
I mean, all roads lead somewhere, and here we go. Yeah, I can see that being like the new Iceberg Lounge. I know it's not going to happen because of how grounded this version of these characters are. But man, I am waiting for the day. Maybe it'll happen in the new DCU with Batman and the Brave and the Bold. I want to see the Iceberg Lounge in the Gotham Harbor. I am waiting for the day where we get an igloo-sized casino in the middle of the ocean, just floating around, just being like the star attraction for tourists, and Gotham's wealthy. I am waiting for that to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised. Again, we've been kind of theorizing what's going to happen in the next episode, and half of the time we're kind of on point. The other half, it just throws it out of the window. We have no idea what the hell's going on. I mean, we kept talking about how Victor's downfall would be mishandling Oz's mom, and sure enough, it did happen, but it wasn't really his fault. I mean, what's he gonna do? He can't handle Sophia. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sophia did it herself, but I'm pretty sure she had her goons somewhere outside the door.
So, hey, Greg.
Yeah, cheers.
Nice to see you. So, yeah, because Penguin, again, he wasn't upset. I thought, like you and I have been saying all season, that Victor's going to screw up with the mom, and that's going to be it. Penguin's going to flip and kill her, but instead he didn't. He was like, keep your guilt. I don't need that. Go get me an army, kid.
Yeah.
And it's like he accepted that they got ambushed, and and so it's like, and like Sal said when he showed up, yeah, I've been to your place, and so he doesn't really blame.
Wouldn't it be funny if he wasn't ambushed and it's all planned by Sophia? Imagine if it wasn't an ambush, he got hit in the head to make it look real, and then in the last episode, when he goes to the old club, Victor's gonna be there.
So have you betrayed him for Sophia?
Yeah, he flipped.
Right, because I'm thinking now with the Maronis, Salvatore being killed and all, like, if Victor comes back with the triads, what exactly is going to happen? It's like what is it going to be? The Falcone or Sophia's random thugs versus the triads random thugs? Like, what's exactly going to happen? We don't really know. The Bliss is obviously gone. They blew that place to smithereens.
Yep.
So we'll see.
But we don't know. We theorize, and then when it happens, we're just like, oh shit, I did not think of that. Or
I mean, I don't think they could top the shock value in terms of the beginning of this episode, but I think they're going to need a big surprise to end the show.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not going to top the horror of the kids dying in the sewer, but it's like you got to find something that feels like, oh shit, like another shock value moment in the finale.
Yeah, something you have to not only stick to landing, but you have to do it in a way that it's going to get people talking, and it's going to get people to want to watch the show again from the beginning, to watch it all in one go, so that they might be picking up on new things, or like just watching it in one sitting all 8 hours. It's like that would be the smartest choice as a writer, but again, we don't know what's going to happen in this episode. We already have an idea what could happen. It's just a matter of, all right, we've theorized, we want to see this, we want to see that. And even if we don't get what we're talking about, the worst they can do is give us something better.
And I wonder if, they had that tease back in like the fourth episode or whatever when the police chief came to Sophia and basically accused her without explicitly accusing her of killing all the Falcones. And so it's like, that's right, law enforcement still thinks she's the hangman, and now they think she killed everybody at the mansion.
Yep.
And I'm sure from their investigation, it's like, well, they didn't find a gas leak, so somebody had to have tampered with it.
Yeah. And the
So
girl's parking. So
yeah, I wonder if that's going to come back, if he's going to, use the
well,
cop.
she's either going to die by the end of
Remember, when Gia said she found the gas mask, Sophia didn't do anything to change her mind. She just said, "Oh, there were bad people who deserved it," but you don't know what Gia's going to say. Maybe she will tell somebody.
Yeah, so she'll either die at the end of this episode that's coming, the last one, or she goes back to prison and she becomes the one thing she kept saying that she wasn't, and she embraces it.
Mm-hmm.
And she becomes a rogues gallery member, not for Batman, but a thorn on Oz's side moving forward. Because he could kill her, or he could just dance around knowing, ha 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 ha, you're there, I'm here, blah blah blah.
Euler Greg is a question. He says, "Will we ever see Batman or the Joker in this series? Possibly in season 2. I'm enjoying the series so far."
Not the series, but the movie.
No, the movies, yes, but the series, no, because next week is the finale. I believe they already said before this that Batman's not going to make an appearance unless that's the big surprise that they were lying and Batman does show up in the finale. But I don't think he should, because I mean, this has been Penguin's lead show. It would be kind of odd if Batman just all of a sudden dropped in.
Well, I mean, he would drop in if it's like a massive shootout, especially if the police
it's
are
possible.
involved. He might show up.
Yeah, it's possible that could be a big surprise that they've been deliberately keeping.
And maybe that's where they blew all their budget in the last episode. Because you gotta convince even if he does show up, I doubt it. We're gonna see Robert Pattinson's face. It's just gonna probably be a stunt double. But you still need to pay the stunts. You need to get the suit. You got to make sure the suit looks good, and you got to make it look like, oh yeah, that's the Cape Crusader kicking ass at some point.
Yeah, and the Joker, of course, as we know, is in Arkham Asylum already.
He's already pulling the strings behind the scenes already at that point.
Yeah, so and that's like when people ask season 2, I've heard whispers about that, but if there is a season 2, I imagine it won't be until after the Batman Part 2, because that movie is going to start filming in April should the plan hold.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't even think they should call it the Penguin season 2. I think everything should just be an anthology. You get the Batman, Penguin, the Batman 2, you get a show called Gotham PD or the Mayor PD or something about.
And with the failure of Joker Foley Ado, I'm sure that Zaslav is going to light a fire under Reeves' ass saying, come on, get going. We can't have any more delays.
Oh, well. The other thing I wanted to bring up is my favorite shot. Well, not a shot, but it's a sequence, but it's still technically a shot because there was some work here done in the cinematography. It's particularly when Oz is brawling with Sal. Mm-hmm. The moment that Sal falls and dies of a heart attack and Penguin gets up and he starts yelling and berating the corpse, basically, you look at his face. You look at the light shining on his face, that purple mixture with white and blue and a little bit of gray, adding to the fact the makeup work that went into making Colin Farrell look like the character from the comics. There was no human in that scene. He looked like a comic book accurate Oswald Cobblepot. His nose looked exactly like that of a bird's beak. His eyes were like sinister, almost animalistic. His jaw, his teeth almost looked like fangs at some point. Like, he did not look human at all. He transformed in those 60 seconds of him just yelling at a dead body that he won. He just looked vicious. Like, all of a sudden Oz died and the Penguin was taking over, and all I was missing was a top hat and an umbrella, and he's using the umbrella to shoot the body at the end to make a point. But one other thing I will say, regardless of what happens in the end, if he does end up making that old jazz club into the Iceberg casino, I want the episode to end with him welcoming people dressed in the top hat with the tuxedo and the umbrella, a monocle just for the fuck of it. And then while he's welcoming his guests inside, he looks up into the sky. And what does he see? The bat signal. And it ends with him going, "Show's about to start, boys. Let's go." And that's how it ends.
Maybe.
I mean, a man can dream. That's how I would.
He also in this episode got the vest and the coat, so he's even more starting to get to that.
He's going for it.
I do love the double entendre that it's not just top hat, like a literal top hat, but like the movie top hat, because he, dancing with his mom, like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, and they gun him down like the cane, and it's like,
but isn't it funny that would be his? Isn't it funny that would be his inspiration for donning the costume?
Right, because that was one of the happiest memories he had with his mom. Like that was the night he finally knew he was going to have his mom all to himself and not feel neglected or whatever, or having to share her again.
You know what's funny? When he was walking with his brothers in the rain, it reminded me that in the comics, his mother always told him, "Take an umbrella, son. We don't want you to catch a cold. It was a pneumonia that killed your father."
Right.
So him getting wet kind of reminded me of that excerpt in the comics.
Euler Greg says, "Great description of the transformation of Penguin. Awesome makeup and cinematography, for sure."
Yeah, all that was missing was saliva to just be spitting out like a rabid animal. Basically, that was all that was missing to make the point. Oh, this guy stopped being Oz a while ago.
Well, like your avatar, he not only needs the top hat and the umbrella, but he needs the monocle and the cigarette.
And the thing is that when the explosion happened, I was hoping that he would have lost an eye or scratched an eye, so that he would require to put it there. But then he also got hit in the face, so maybe him getting hit in the face with the baton might do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Or something's gonna happen in the finale where he's gonna get an eye pierced or something.
Yeah. But this is great. Now it's like, oh God, what's gonna happen?
What's gonna happen?
Because our primary.
You know how we mentioned? Oh, I'm sorry. You were finished. You were saying?
Because I'm gonna say our primary theory that Victor's gonna fuck up with Francis. He did, and Penguin wasn't that upset about it, but we'll see what happens
We'll see what happens. The sky's the limit now.
If Victor fucks up and not being able to bring the army, and then Francis dies as a result of him not being able to get help, maybe then Penguin loses it on him.
Yeah, and then he can also be collateral damage.
Yeah.
He could live and die in the city he was supposed to leave with, and then you'll probably have that moment where, fuck, I should have gotten on that bus with her and left.
Oh yeah.
Like we all agree that he should have gotten on that bus, but we all know that if he didn't, Penguin would have died a few episodes ago.
Right, and along with Sophia, and the Gotham would be better for it.
Exactly, Gotham would be better for it, and Batman would clean up the corruption and the crime families on his home whenever he would come back. So nothing would change, but then you wouldn't have a Penguin, basically.
Things would have changed in that you wouldn't. Yeah, nothing changed, but it wouldn't have gotten worse.
Yeah,
because we know for certain it's going to get worse. So now it's like, oh God,
but the plot demands it, Cat. The plot demands it. So they mentioned Beetlejuice. So we kind of got an idea of the timeline here, basically. So considering that a Batman does exist in this universe in his second year, and considering that after Beetlejuice came out, Tim Burton's next movie the year later, would be Batman in 1989. So would he have made a different type of movie that we'll never know of because this is in this universe? Or would he have gone straight to Edward Scissorhands? Or would it be kind of like that parody type of situation where Tim Burton is inspired by a Cape Crusader in the city of Gotham and makes a movie about him?
I don't know if they thought about it that deeply, but
no. But if you were to imagine a scenario in this universe where the Beetlejuice movie exists,
then there wouldn't be Batman 89 or Batman 92. There wouldn't be. He would have just done Edward Scissorhands and then Nightmare Before Christmas,
and then
Ed Wood, and he just gone on with the rest of the filmography. Just no Batman.
No Batman. But do you think he would have done something else in between? Something that Tim has always talked about but never got to do?
No, because I feel that, he had a lot of movies coming out in a real short time span. They had Beetlejuice in 88, and in March of 88, Batman just 15 months later in June 89, and then Edward Scissorhands was, I believe that was actually the spring of '90, or maybe later, and then like, that was really boom, 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 and then having to jump straight into Batman Returns while Henry Selick was making Nightmare Before Christmas. So it's like all this crazy stuff going on. I think it would have just taken. I feel that was also Warner Brothers' mandate. It's like, oh, Beetlejuice succeeded, so you have to accept whatever the next thing they offer you.
Yeah.
And once Batman became a success, it's like, well, they're gonna want him to do a sequel, so he kind of has to, oh, here you could do something, Tim, as a thank you for that for Batman. Okay, does Edwards? Oh, now you got to do this. So I think he would have just taken more time off.
Probably. And clearly,
He
if there
definitely
was a
would have. He definitely would have been available more for Nightmare because, according to Henry Selick, for the 2 years they spent actually doing the stop motion animation, Tim only and by 2 years he's like literally 7 days a week for 2 years. Tim only came up for 10 days, broke it over like 5 separate visits. He was like barely ever there because he just didn't have the time.
Mhm.
And they're like the script was mostly rewritten, and basically he didn't make that movie. Henry and other people made that movie from the short film that that Vincent Price narrated, which Tim Burton made, and he had a very rough outline of the story and the characters, but that was all done by other people pretty much.
Yeah.
But I think he would have been a lot more hands-on with it if he didn't have the Batman movies going on.
Yeah. I'll say this though.
100%.
If Beetlejuice did happen, do you think Michael Keaton's career in this universe, assuming it's Michael Keaton portraying the character in this universe, do you think he would have made a sequel to Mr. Mom, or do you think he would have gone back to TV? Because without Batman, his career would not have gone into the stratosphere.
Well, I mean,
Again, we're just having fun with what if in this situation.
right, but I don't. I mean, Michael Keaton's always been a great actor, but I didn't see it as him going into the stratosphere after Batman. He kind of
Well, your career does change when you become Batman.
right, but I didn't see him getting like a lot of the movies you and I talk about from the '90s and stuff. Michael Keaton's name doesn't pop up, at least not very often.
Well, do
So
you think he would have remained a TV actor who occasionally does movies, or?
yeah, I think so because he did a few other movies like Pacific Heights, which is terrible. A couple other fun movies, and he did some. I remember I watched one with Brendan Fraser that had a great twist ending, but other than that, was really bad and boring up to that point. And bit movies here and there that most people aren't going to see. Like people considered Birdman kind of like a comeback. And he's like, yeah,
that definitely was a comeback.
right. But he's like, yeah, I never really went anywhere. I just started doing other things, and he's in it, and he's made no secret that he does a lot of roles just for the money. Now he's excited by it. Same thing, like he said, yeah, I did Batgirl for the money.
But at least he's energized. He really wants to do the work. He's actually putting in 110%. Yeah, the money's great, but I got to show up to work.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Because a lot of actors these days, they'll get the paycheck, but they phone it in, and it's just like, come on, man, I know you're better than this. I know the movie's not up to your standards, but you did accept the paycheck. At least show us you give a shit.
Yeah, I see that a lot with the actors who get those big, contracts to do like several Netflix movies and things like that.
I will say this though. I think in this universe, what if scenario, I think Danny DeVito would have survived it just fine because the movie that he was in after Batman Returns was Hoffa. So I think his career would have gone the same way, basically.
He made that movie too.
Yeah, but again, his career would have probably still gone the same way without Batman Returns. And I think Michelle Pfeiffer would also continue on, even without being a sex icon in that movie. Hell, she probably could have had her sex icon happen in Wolf with, ironically, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Batman Returns, even though, some people liked what his performance, others didn't. So I don't think that would have affected like negative one way or another.
I'll end my topic and everything to close out this review. A couple of things. One, I love that we get a lot of action in the sewers of Gotham, because if you're ever a Batman fan and you're always reading his comics, most of the time Batman is in the sewers, or some of the villains are in the sewers, especially when you come across Killer Croc. Sometimes Selena Kyle uses the sewers to get around the city undetected. And the sewers is basically where Batman has a lot of his secret safe houses all over Gotham, and most of the time it's in the sewers. Hell, even, I know it's not Gotham, but in Metropolis, Lex Luthor has safe houses in the sewers, and And ever since Superman came to be, let's put a considerable amount of capital into putting lead lining in all the sewers in Metropolis to make sure to get in and out without Superman knowing where he's going at any given time.
Yeah.
And last thing, we were talking about that we were thinking that Sophia was in the Mercedes SUV in there, but when the door opens, it's daylight and she's not there. I just want to say that yes, there is corruption in Gotham. Yes, a lot of the cops, they still need to be, excised and taken out the trash. But clearly, there is no visible light transmission law in Gotham City for people to be driving around with that much tint on their cars where you don't even see the daylight coming through.
Yeah.
Any other state, you'll be getting stopped and getting ticketed for having above 33%, you sons of bitches.
I see people like that drive around with windows like that, and it's like, I don't want to turn the corner yet because I literally can't see the driver to make eye contact to see it. It's like,
Yeah, and that's how you get stopped and given a big fat traffic ticket.
Yeah.
But it depends on the state, and clearly because Gotham is in Jersey, well, it's Jersey. What do you expect?
Yeah.
No, it's true. Everybody has agreed that the consensus is that Gotham takes place in Jersey.
Well, yeah, because there was some of Gotham was in New York and some of it's in Jersey.
Yeah, but I think even in Snyder's Batman v Superman, it takes place in Jersey.
Yeah,
which again explains the accent.
Mm.
Well, do we have any more comments? Anybody else chiming in throughout my waxing poetry of what if?
Not yet. No, not really. But
I guess I bored him to death.
Well, thanks, Euler Greg. Haven't seen you here before. Nice to meet you. DJ Play Nice, always amazing. Rock. And Lemon Pie. Thanks for showing up. This has been fun.
All right.
I know we don't have big audiences. We do this the night after it aired, so some people probably haven't seen it yet. But I know we do good on rewatches. So yeah.
So do you want to do the finale next Monday or do it on Wednesday on New Comic Book Day?
I'll see what's going on in terms of scheduling.
Yeah, because maybe we can do it after people have had time to watch it, and then we can engage further with the audience. Because I don't mind doing the day after, but clearly we get more engagement a day or two later.
Yes, that'll probably be a good idea. So,
Sure.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So we'll be back probably next Wednesday or whatever. Give people time to watch the finale, and yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed their time. But next time, see ya.
Adios.
Adios.